When you look at history and you all of a sudden you make a little discovery of something that really added to the development of whatever historical event you're looking at. And I was fascinated in your book when you talked about the proclamations and how fast they caught on and what they did for our national and then international reputation.
You know, if you think of this focus they had, this wasn't just to entertain the Grand Duke. This was to shine a spotlight on New Orleans and to invite the world to come and visit the city again. They used every means at their disposal, and they did it really effectively. It would be a good case study in excellent promotion. Many of these, of the founders were newspapermen, and at that time, newspapers were, I mean, no city just had one. I mean, many of them had a dozen newspapers. They figured if they could get enough press on this, that they could get some attention. So Rex is coming to his capital city of New Orleans. How do we get that word out? They started sending edicts and missives from the Rex crew and the Rex Organization and the Rex court as it approached New Orleans. So these edicts went out over the wire services and found their way in the newspapers all around the country. Rex is coming. He'll be there in a week. He'll be there in 3 days. He sent greetings to the mayor and so on. So that was a means of promulgating that information and making that invitation. This was also an age of railroads, and it became the major way that people moved around this country. Rex issued his proclamations and his edicts, not just in the newspaper, but he created very colorful proclamations with the image of Rex, proclaiming Carnival and inviting his subjects to gather to his capital city of New Orleans. Where do you put those? We put them in railroad stations. So all up and down the railroad lines, these proclamations were distributed and posted. Some of the pamphlets we found even had helpful railroad schedules on the back. But Rex put the word out, and people said, okay, and they came. And within just a few years, this city was as full as it could be with visitors. And those images began to show up in newspapers everywhere of Canal Street, absolutely filled with people, happy people watching this beautiful parade, and more came. So this became, in very short order, a very successful exercise in inventing a king and then putting out the word that everyone should come and gather and celebrate with him.
And of course, fun and splendor spreads very rapidly. And one of the things that Rex has always done is to have these transcripts from the parade that talk about the floats and describe them. They've been done visually, they've been done in writing, and that tradition continues.
The first parades, as I mentioned, were mostly wagons and bands, and that only went so far. Within 4 or 5 years, they said we really need to make this parade far more organized. So, in fact, Rex issued an edict disinviting what he called the promiscuous maskers to join his parade. That they were no longer welcome. This was going to be a more highly organized and more highly designed parade. That parade would be designed around a theme every year. The parade would be built anew each year to illustrate that theme with really elegant float designs and titles, very esoteric and very beautiful. There was an effort to preserve that and to present it to the public. Initially, float bulletins were published in newspapers with the images of the float designs on one side and then the narrative and description of those floats on the reverse. That went away for a while, and in fact, parade design faltered a little bit in the 30s and 40s, and over the last 30 or 40 years has really come back to the old traditions and the old approaches of developing a really beautiful theme, building a beautiful parade around that, and then making those designs and that narrative available. The founders never had anything as glorious as the internet. Rex has a very, very busy website. This time of year, Carnival time, it just becomes a very busy place, and we make some of that information available there so that people can anticipate, learn about the parade a little bit. Especially that has been important in taking our parade into classrooms around the world where classrooms would like to approach some of the elements of the parade and the theme, to do some research and present student work built around that, we've made all of our information available to classrooms over the last 10 years and post student work on our website in the Rex in the Classroom program that gets very creative, very beautiful. I sometimes think that maybe that's what the founders meant when they thought of School of Design, because we have a lot of happy school children who are looking at these parades, and when their parents scratch their heads and wonder what that's about, they can turn to their child and get a very good explanation.
Obviously, in the very beginning, Rex had members. But when the parades were put on, it sounds like the parade had a lot of other maskers involved in it that were not members. Speak a little bit about the early members and how the membership has evolved over the years.
You know, those early parades were thrown together and haphazard, much better than what was there before. But if you wanted to be part of the parade, you were told where to show up, decorate your wagon, and fall in line. As the parade became more designed and more limited to the membership, that obviously had to change. The early membership of the Rex organization really was composed of two groups. The royal host were the inner circle. These were the dukes of the realm. They were given that kind of a title. The Duke of Education, for example, was George Soule, who founded a business college here. That small group provided most of the financing for the parades and for the organization, and in turn they were given their honorifics and a beautiful medallion to wear. And they worked year-round to help the organization accomplish its goals. The larger group was called Carnival Court, and those members numbered in the hundreds, and they rode the floats. One of the other things to remember about the early Rex parades is that floats were not vehicles to carry lots of beads and doubloons to throw to crowds. Up and really through the 1920s, these were rolling tableaus. These were works of art, beautifully crafted to illustrate a theme, with the members of the organization beautifully costumed as part of those themes and those parade designs. And they basically posed. They posed on their floats, and people would look and they would ooh and they'd ah and they'd admire. But if you look at the pictures of those huge parade crowds up through the 1920s, there's not a single hand in the air. Nobody's pleading for a bead or for a throw. That all changed, obviously, after that. But those early times, the designs of the floats and the costumes and the beauty of that rolling work of art was the sum total of the parade experience.
Well, that's fascinating to me, and one of the things I love about this lieutenant's room is looking around the top of the walls here, and I kind of consider it a hall of kings. You know, photographs and other images of all of the kings in history are in this room. It gives you a sense of tradition. It gives you a sense of some of the very important people who have contributed to the history of New Orleans. Members of this organization are not publicly listed, but one of the things about the School of Design is that it is a very public organization. And the Rex organization has always opened its doors for people to come in and learn more about the contributions and what Carnival really means to the city, such as it's very common to see cameras here in the den, even on the day when people are loading up for the parade. Then a lot of documentaries have been made here, include footage from here, and interviews with members. And then, of course, the Pro Bono Publico Foundation has become very public with the website and everything.
Rex is the public face of Carnival, and that was intentionally done. Comus at that time, and still is it's the oldest organization in the city. It's a very private organization. Rex intentionally chose a more public path to give shape and substance and an overall umbrella of organization and leadership to this developing celebration, which is now, I mean, look at the breadth of the Carnival celebration now. Dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations representing every group, every neighborhood. It is a very broad and very inclusive celebration, but over it all, is the king of carnival. And that public responsibility means that we do open up our organization and our den, our history, our traditions very broadly, and we mean to do that. Every organization has a purpose. I see Rex as having a really key responsibility to anchor historically this celebration in this city. It has gone off in so many directions, and I'm sometimes asked what the founders would think of that. And it's never crossed my mind to think that they wouldn't be delighted by that. That there are so many celebrations now, and that this fills up weeks and fills up the city, fills up hotel rooms, that it is a glorious and diverse celebration. They may not have imagined it just in that way, but they'd be absolutely delighted. But we can't lose the historic anchor to that. Much of what the world sees of Carnival is not attractive. It is excess of all sorts. It is girls gone wild, and it is videos on YouTube. I don't want to be the only element of Carnival that is that the public sees. The more that we can do to help the world understand how Carnival fits in this city, what its traditions are, where they started, what they mean, and to see the kind of beauty that this parade, that this ball, that this spectacle represents, I think that's a really important balance to the overall celebration. And we work very hard to do that. When at Carnival time, we'll have dozens of inquiries all over the world, people who are coming here to do news pieces either on TV or on the internet or in print. And we try to accommodate them. We try to bring them here. We try to show them what this part of Carnival is about, and hope that that begins to balance some of the other images and stories that find their way into those